Good evening.
I'm super excited to be here with my first speech. And in a professional setting, I'm usually doing more technical presentations, so I don't get to try a lot of different things. So I'm going to try something different today. Show of hands, how many of you recognize the symbol H2O that you see over here? Fantastic. I thought everybody would know it. Great. H2O stands for water. When you look at mighty ocean, the flowing rivers, Great Lakes, or just a simple fountain in the park, there's something captivating about water. For generations and eons, all human beings are captivated, attracted towards it. Water has the ability to start civilizations and destroy them. But more importantly, in my life, water has played a very pivotal role in influencing certain behaviors and decisions I've made along the way. So in today's icebreaker speech, I have 3 such instances where water has influenced my decision, and I'm going to introduce myself by way of narrating those. I grew up in Pune, that's where I was born in the 1980s, in a small town called Pune, which is 100 miles to the east of Mumbai. And each year after school ended in the summer, I visited my grandparents to a very remote village, which was west central part of the country. And I'd spend the entire summer with them on their farm where they grew wheat, cotton. They had a beautiful citrus orchard where they grew limes, lemons, oranges. I distinctly remember the summer I had just turned 8. I visited my grandparents as usual, and I remember that year because that's the year I finally overcame my fear of water and began how to swim. My grandmother was my swimming coach, first swimming coach. She knew I was afraid, so she had a way to tell me different stories while gently nudging me into shallow water. First into shallow water. Next thing I knew, I was into knee-deep water with a homemade, let's call it a life jacket, made out of hollowed pumpkins strapped on my back. And once she gained confidence in my ability to remain afloat, then she let me go into deeper waters with my cousins and occasionally ride some of those water buffaloes you see there. I guess the lesson I learned during this time in my life was trust the process. If there are some obstacles, trust your well-wishers. You will overcome some of your greatest fears. So after high school, there was time to go to college. And I applied to a variety of engineering schools in the state. And luckily I got accepted into all of them, with the exception of one college, which is College of Engineering, Pune, again, the same city where I was born. So every other college gave me an accept in their coveted computer engineering program, which at the time was known to offer lucrative careers, arguably even today. Now COEP, this college, was started by the British in 1865 to train their officers in the technical branches of their army. But that was not really the appeal for me. The appeal was the college had a boat club. And the boat club offered avenues for students to do some competitive rowing. So there was really no dilemma in my mind whether to pick computer engineering, a lucrative career offering course in pretty much any college in the state, or mechanical engineering here. I picked the boat club. For 4 years after that, each day I was on the river in a rowing boat, and I was rowing several hours, and along the way I became a mechanical engineer also. So the lesson I learned over here is, don't take life so seriously. Learn to take some risks, enjoy life. And the other lesson I learned here is, computer engineers are smart people, but mechanical engineers that can row are probably the smarter. That's me, by the way.
Oh, wow.
So after graduating from engineering school, it was time to test the fire in my belly, or the conflagration in my belly. So I applied to a variety of graduate schools in the US. I got accepted in Rochester Institute of Technology in New York. So here I was, age 22, on a plane, going to Rochester with a stopover in Detroit. I land in Detroit, waiting for my next flight, and I was very thirsty. I go to a gate attendant and I ask her, where can I find some drinking water? She pointed me in the general direction and said, you'll find a drinking water fountain right by the restroom. So this is a culture change for me. So I walk in the direction I was instructed to, and I find myself staring at that fountain. If anybody's traveled to Detroit Airport, you can still see that. 20 years later, whenever I go to Detroit Airport, I always click a picture. Because I was staring there at the fountain and thinking, of course Americans don't drink water out of that. And then finally I went thirsty on the next plane, drank a glass of water, and it took me a few more months to realize the drinking water fountain that the gate attendant was referring to. All in all, the lesson I learned over here was trust your instincts. Sometimes if you think something is wrong, just ask the question. Don't be shy like I was. And you'll get the right answer. And I hope at the end of this, with these water snippets, I was able to introduce myself. It just seems very apt to end the speech with what I've heard, not verbatim, but President John F. Kennedy once said, we all come from the ocean. Whether you go to the ocean to sail or just to be on the beach, you're essentially going back to where we came from. Thank you.